Okay, very good. We're here for what we call Superior Court Update. My name is Ty Mentor, Vice Chair of the board, and Commissioner Hutchings is not available today. Commissioner Edwards is here, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, presiding Superior Court Judge Eric Price, Court Administrator Pam Hartman-Beyer, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. I think that's the roundup. And it's just an open round table. So I guess I'll start to turn it over to Judge Price, and if he has any updates from his end, and then we can just take it from there. Brief form.
Yeah, well, I don't have a lot of structured updates. The one thing I did want to mention, something that I had talked about, I think earlier a few weeks ago, but can say more formally to this group, kind of explain where we are in jury trials. We had initially made the decision when the Supreme Court authorized jury trials to start on July 6th. We were one of the counties that went forward with a plan to have jury trials on July 6th. We made that decision, I think, some point mid-June, maybe second week of June or so, and put a lot of pieces in place to have jury trials, and believe in a safe way with social distancing and masking and so forth. We had 2 weeks, the 6th and the 13th, in which we were prepared to do a jury trial. We had jurors summoned, and we were prepared to do it. We had several trials each week confirmed. In both cases, both weeks, none of the cases actually went to trial. We ended up resolving about 6 cases in those 2 weeks. The cases that had confirmed for trial, we then meant that we didn't have to bring jurors in, didn't actually have a jury trial, notwithstanding the fact that we were prepared to do so. I believe then, and I still believe, that having jury trial availability, or the threat of it, motivated a lot of the resolutions that we saw from those cases that were set for those weeks. But then, of course, it's no secret that the numbers in the county, as well as the state, sort of took a dark turn at the beginning of July. And we were watching those numbers very carefully as we were looking at doing a jury trial in that subsequent week of the 20th. And ultimately, with the numbers going sideways, we made the decision to put a pause on jury trials after 2 weeks of having them be available. And so the week of I think it's the 20th, I don't have a calendar in front of me, of July, we put a pause. We are currently in that pause. We had made a decision to sort of take a week-by-week look at it and make the decision 10 days before the next Monday of trials starting to make a decision of whether we would have jury trials. We have we've expanded that. Just today, the Board of Judges decided to expand that additional week, so it's now 17 days. We make a decision 17 days before the Monday of whether we're going to start trial. Currently, we have made the announcement, I think it was made yesterday morning or this morning, that we would not have trials the week of August 24th. So now the soonest we're going to have a jury trial is August 31st. And we will make the decision next week of whether we're going to have trials on the 31st. We have been engaged in conversations with County Health. We just had one again today to try to get their thoughts, generally speaking, and also have asked for their expertise in vetting not only our courthouse facility, but also our plan for jury trials. I think County Health is familiar with our concern about continuing to pause jury trials from the perspective of the defendants who are sitting, particularly the in custody defendants, sitting in jail and not getting their jury trials going. We also have some deadlines from our Supreme Court that paused speedy trial, and those expire at the end of August. So unless and until the Supreme Court updates their pause of speedy trial, we are going to run into that problem as well if we don't begin jury trials. So we're very, very interested in starting jury trials, of course, trying to balance that need to do a jury trial with the really disappointing, I guess the word I'll use, numbers that we have in the county and in the state, I suppose in the country as well. I think when we talked to Ms. Slaughter just today, she shares some pessimism with us about those numbers, notwithstanding the fact we had a couple of days earlier this week that looked much better. But whether or not we can get some sustained numbers is going to be something we're looking at to make that decision. So like we've been for months now, you know, you don't like the news, wait 5 minutes, it seems to change, and we're just doing the best we can in making that decision. But the bottom line is we started trials, started availability for trials on July 6th. After 2 weeks, paused it. We're still in a pause with looking at all the indicators and trying to get as much information as we can as to when to make that difficult decision to unpause. So more than happy to answer any questions about that or anything else. But that's really been focused. A lot of our attention right now has been focused on those balancing those difficult and important considerations, both importance of a jury trial on the one hand and safety for not only the community but specifically for jurors that in our view don't have a lot of a choice when we ask them to come in to the courthouse.
So Commissioner Edwards, if you have a question, wave your hand in front of the dais, because that's what I can actually see of you.
How's this?
Yeah, there you go. Love it. Yeah, wave the hat right there. Okay.
I'm curious about the location and how you're doing the jury room itself.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Commissioner. We have, well, first of all, we've got kind of two parallel tracks going. First, our current facility, and then, of course, the offsite facility, which is a sort of a different animal that, as we understand it, is well, it won't be, the soonest it's going to be ready is maybe the end of October. So with respect to the current facility that we obviously have just one large courtroom, courtroom 102. And then we have three relatively small jury deliberation rooms. So when we look at social distancing requirements, we are only able to essentially facilitate one jury at a time with a jury size of being basically 13. Some larger trials you'd want 14, but we're sort of looking at the 13 number. If we were to take 13 people and socially distance them for breaks and for deliberations, we need all of our jury deliberation rooms and additional courtroom to do that. So regardless of where the trial actually occurs, we can only do one at a time. Now, we have focused our efforts on, or our plans on two different courtrooms. One, the large courtroom of 102 for jury selection. And I think we will still have to do jury selection with respect to our current facilities in the largest courtroom we have, 102. And that's regardless of whether we have jury selection in groups of 30, which we can potentially house in 102, or if we drop it down to 10, if we have to go consistent with the governor's requirements of no groups over 10. It would still have to be in 102. Now, we have toyed with, and this is kind of new information, we have really looked at trying to look at our facilities. Can we not have a trial itself in 102 because that pulls that particular courtroom off its availability for our other criminal counters that have a lot of people attending them or could have a lot of people attending them. So we've talked to actually the possibility of having the actual trial itself in our smallest courtroom, 101. Now, there's a couple of advantages to that. One is the witnesses, if they testify, will be closer to the jury if we house the jury completely in the gallery. This is something that Pierce County is doing. They have courtrooms in which the jury is in the gallery, and then they don't allow the public in the courtroom. They get around the open courts concern, which is a constitutional right, of course, open courts in the state, by streaming that trial into another courtroom. So that's one of the things we're toying with. Can we get that court case out of 102 for the trial itself after jury selection? And if we could put it in 101, our smallest courtroom, so long as we can stream into the public's right to see it in another courtroom, we might be able to do that. Again, that's all separate and apart from the fact that we can only house the jury with one because of the need for jury deliberations. One of the things that we're interested in doing is getting that technical expertise that Shelley's shop now has to sort of vet some of our concepts in that regard and see if we really can mechanically make that happen. Now, we're going to, if and when the offsite space occurs, we are going to not have that problem because it's a much larger space that we can both do selection and the trial itself, which would alleviate some of these hurdles we're having to deal with now. That's a long answer to your question, Commissioner. I hope that addressed at least part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ramiro, anybody?
Yeah,
Robin?
maybe a follow-up to the last part that Your Honor mentioned in terms of the offsite courtroom. We're moving forward with the lease agreement, and we're going to be bringing this to the board's attention for approval. So that is moving forward. As I mentioned to the board a couple of weeks ago, there is going to be an issue in terms of how we're going to be able to pay the lease after the coronavirus money either lapses in terms of time or perhaps we run out of money. But as I mentioned to Robin yesterday, we need to continue with the process because there is a need that we need to address for the courts. And at some point, staff needs to work with the board to find a way as to how we can bridge the financial gap. So from our perspective, that is the commitment to the courts to bring those items to the board and work through the details. I believe there is going to be some opportunities, whether the Department of Commerce extends to the December 31st, 2020, that's an opportunity for the current money. Maybe the Congress is looking at the new coronavirus law, which maybe allows for a longer period of time and not necessarily additional money, but at least additional time in which we can spend that, which that is going to help moving forward. So I didn't feel that there was an impediment on the lease for not to do the right thing and addressing the needs of the court. So that is moving forward. And again, the board will see that as a formal AIS to authorize signing the lease here in the next couple of weeks.
I also want to say that I appreciate the work that Pam has done to coordinate the grant request to the AOC. And that will also help to pay for this space.
We've been provisionally approved for funding from AOC for November and December. We're just waiting on some of the lease information, and Chris did provide, the project manager did provide some of that information today. So I think we will get some additional funding support through AOC for November and December.
Great.
Your sound is not coming too clear, Pam. Sorry.
It sounds like I'm underwater, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll work on it.
Good to see you, Pam. We missed you the last couple of meetings. Okay. What else? What else do we need to address? Anybody have a topic? I can see Commissioner Edwards really clearly now.
You know, possibly, I don't know, is this a good opportunity to talk about annual or biannual budgets from the courts?
Yeah, so I was on a call today regarding funding from the Department of Children Services, and they give a reimbursement for services around child support. And some of it comes from the federal government and some of it comes from the state. And basically that call was a warning that their budget is likely to get cut and we probably won't see as much revenue from them as we historically did. They made a promise to us that we wouldn't see that cut or potential 15% cut until 2021. But those types of things are going to be really difficult to fully understand or predict in terms of what additional revenue is going to come in. And just for Robin's sake, one of the things we did ask that department is if it's a match from the federal government, we'd hate to lose out on the federal funds. Is there a possibility for someone else supplying that match so we're not losing out on the federal government funds? So I think we're asking all the questions we can, but it's difficult right now to be in the budget structure we're in because there's so many unknowns about what additional revenues may come in and what the needs are going to be.
I got about half of that.
I will follow up with an email.
I don't know what's wrong with the sound, but.
The tail end was her saying that there's a lot of
not here.
uncertainty. and that it's difficult to be in the budget structure we're in just right now because of uncertainties. And she had a specific example that I didn't catch every nuance of, but it's something that there may be reduced revenue coming from a particular source that they relied on. So we're trying to get a sense of, we had a long discussion this morning, and we're trying to get a sense of, are the uncertainties to a degree that a change in budgeting approach makes sense versus the cost of just making the change and this late in the game? Is there value added to only trying to budget for a year, or is it just better to stick with the 2 years and make maybe more deeper and more robust adjustments, understanding that we'll have to do that as we go along? So there was quite a discussion about that this morning in the board and with Robin and Miro. No clear consensus. Our end point was to say that we were going to basically reach out to our other elected officials and try to get more specific input as to what they see the value would be of making a change versus staying the course. And so that's why we might as well hear from you now.
As long as there's flexibility in the 2-year budgeting process to bring amendments, that may suffice. But there is so much change that it's hard to predict what's going to happen in 2 years.
Yeah, I guess, for me, I understand that. I guess it's, if you were on the precipice of making some major changes, launching new program, going some new direction with something, then it really puts you puts me in a bind to be trying to make a decision like that in light of uncertainty. That's the kind of, if you're kind of happy with what you've got and your structure, and you're just trying to keep, things on course because you think they're basically on track, then I could see the argument that it doesn't really matter. You might as well shoot for 2 years and make the appropriate adjustment if revenue comes in really strangely. But, if you're on the brink of launching a new program or some new direction and you're not sure whether to do that or whether you should delay it for 2 whole years, versus 1, I could see. So I think it's going to vary by department in terms of what they think the value is.
Well, and I would say Pam knows a lot more just from historically going through the budget process for the last few years. I would think of the elected officials, the court's probably the most static. We obviously have a variety of new programs that we do that are almost always grant driven, but we are so reactive to what our other partners do that we're not really making a lot of wholesale direction changes that have budgetary effects, with the exception of maybe adding a 9th judge, which of course is part of our ask this time. But and then facility needs, which obviously transcend a mere annual or every 2 year budget process. But I would think that we're probably more capable of being having a 2 year predictable budget, with the exception of moving some deck furniture around, as opposed to maybe some of the other offices. Pam, do you agree with that? That's kind of your off.
Well, that was a good example because if I knew money was there, I would give you a 9th judge as fast as I could. I know the system needs it, and it's just core government. It's meeting the needs of the community, but and then you got to have courtrooms and all that stuff. So
right.
We don't know about any of that. But Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, I think that's going to do it for me. I certainly don't have any heartburn. Appreciate all you folks are doing.
I've been working on a few things that, I know Judge Price and I in our one-on-one talked about the LEAD grant, and we commissioners we had some concerns about some of the program requirements, and we didn't fix all the problems, but we got enough assurance that there was a path forward that we went ahead and agreed to move the grant forward and try to accept the grant and committing to try to iron those iron those wrinkles out. So that's news from, I think, last week. There's been a concept going around starting at the Innovative Justice Group to maybe try to do some kind of service hub for whether it relates to reentry services or diversion services or just broader social services in the community. And there was a visioning group that got together, put together by John Thunheim and myself, and we met with a whole bunch of stakeholders about what they thought the possibilities of such a facility could be. And there's a property at 3000 Pacific Avenue. There's actually a whole bunch of properties that if we wanted to look at. So I don't think we're necessarily tied to that particular address, but it got the discussion started, which I think is great. Pack Mountain was a kind of a driving force in the discussion. Because they do pay market rent somewhere else. They're not that happy with the space that they have. They have project management capacity to kind of maybe spearhead. So we're looking at maybe having them kind of drive some more visioning and stakeholder engagement on who might want to be part of it and what are the possibilities. So it was a good conversation. If you're interested, Thomasina took notes and I could forward those, you could look it over, but it's exciting possibility because so following up on that, Pierce County District Court has a court resource center and King County has something they call CCAP. And I have reached out so I'm going to basically be meeting with the presiding judge and program manager of both of those systems. And I'm going to send an email around and see if anybody wants to join me to see if we can sort of figure out what are they doing and is it working, what's working, how are they funding it, how much space are they using, what are the hours of operation. So we're just going to kind of brainstorm on maybe mix and match, the best qualities of. There's a facility in Fife, there's a facility up in Snohomish County. So there's a bunch of possibilities that we can sort of draw from.
Yeah. Well, I guess I won't speak on behalf of the court necessarily, but speaking individually, anything that can be done. You mentioned the ninth judge. Yeah, we need a ninth judge, and we need more space. But and that's population increase and all of that. But if we can be innovative about alternative ways to deal with public safety and defendants that doesn't take them into the system, and addresses some of those needs of individuals with services as opposed to getting involved in the system and the wheels of the system. That is exciting. It's exciting for the system and it's exciting for our community. So I certainly support that wholeheartedly, and would be happy to do whatever I can to support that type of effort.
The book you recommended at our last meeting that Mary Ann had lent you, she got that over to me and I finished reading it just last couple days. That was good. Very readable. Such a readable social science book. I flew through it, and that doesn't usually happen in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we can talk offline about that book and some of your independent thoughts. Just collectively, I think there's a lot of things, happily, I think that we either are doing in our community or are looking to do in our community that are recommended in that book for improvements in the criminal justice system.
There was a lot of overlaps. Just for Commissioner Edwards' benefit, this is a book called Start Here, and it's done by a couple of researchers from New York who kind of do an overview of criminal justice reform and trying to reduce mass incarceration across the country, and just looking at programs that have gotten started, how they've done, what their challenges were. So it's just kind of a survey, and it gives you some good ideas, and a lot of things we are doing here already. But there are a lot of things that we're not. So it was a good read.
Ties in with the LEADS program, I take it?
Yeah, it does tie in with the LEAD program. Yep. In fact, the LEAD is mentioned in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we don't need to take a full hour if we don't need it. We're allotted for an hour, but.
Let's see. And did we cover the reform, maybe hiring one person to coordinate some of that? Did you cover that, I guess? We talked about that.
Commissioners,
the criminal justice project manager.
Yeah. Did you want to mention that at all? Or?
program manager was something that came up this morning. They were asking the commissioners for budget priorities, and I threw this out here. I'd raised it with the board last spring. It's a position that was created in 2016 budget, and it never got filled, and it was eliminated in 2017. And I have a slightly different vision for it than what was outlined in 2016, but at that time it was to be a backbone for the Law and Justice Council. And it was also, there's a job description out there, and I've got, but anyway, I just, what Commissioner Edwards is referring to is, I threw that out there, is that we were kind of creating placeholders for budget discussions. And that's a position that I'd like the board to discuss. You know, something that came right out of that book was, you know, the role that more and more data plays in data analysis plays in being able to evaluate criminal justice outcomes. And so, you know, I'd like somebody that has that kind of background that could do some work for us to just kind of evaluate efficiencies in our overall criminal justice system, looking at program efficiency, kind of the way we do an overview of TST programs. When we had Pam Gant there, I don't know if she's been replaced. I know she had to leave, but somebody like that, you know, working with Carrie, how they really like evaluate and then helping Law and Justice Council be more effective. And there's a few other roles. There's all sorts of possibilities, but just kind of having some overall program efficiency coordination is my idea. And so that's something that we'll discuss, I guess, in the fall on the budget. If you have any ideas for what kind of role good ideas for what kind of role a staff member like that could play, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. We can talk about that. I know I seem to remember that discussion 2016 as being basically a staff person for Law and Justice. So take a little of the load off of you know, Patrick and John who were leading that. But yeah, you're like you say, a lot of possibilities, and I can imagine the court would have some thoughts on some of it.
Okay. Well,
I think that covers it.
we covered it. I appreciate everybody's time today.
All right. Well, as always, appreciate the opportunity to come before the commission and answer whatever I can answer. It'd be lovely to have these conversations under normal circumstances whenever that happens. But we'll be looking forward to that.
Thank you. And Pam, I will put you down on the list for what's going on with that resource building discussion, since I know you're interested.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.